welcome to my fourth video. I think it's the fourth one, but we look at text mining and identifying sentiment and emotions in student text generated for you on a Google form. So just a reminder we asked the students the simple question, please tell us honestly what you think about the humanities lessons, and we collected these through a Google form and then popped the Google form, transformed the Google form into a CSV file and then pop that CSV file into Orange data mining software. In the previous video we looked at emotional analysis, and we concentrated on the Ekman way of identifying emotions in a body of text and contrasted this with a politic. In this video we're going to have a look at POMS. POMS looks at a different range of emotional states, and what we've used here is we've plotted two of the dominant emotions that POMS has identified in the lessons. So here in this example, so the emotions that it can identify are tension, depression, anger, vigour, fatigue and confusion. Originally POMS was, I believe, developed for use in the sports coaching industry. But POMS might be useful for you. So here that you can see that the system identified students expressed either anger or confusion. And here you can see that the students either identified that they didn't have either of those emotions, or one of those emotions, or two of those emotions. So in this example it gives us a quite good snapshot. Again, understanding what anger is. This is again using a Twitter feed tool. So anger in the context of education could mean things that they could be expressed by things where they're saying that they don't understand something, or words like repetition would be interpreted by the system as anger. Doesn't necessarily mean the student is angered, but it could identify some things that your student is uncomfortable with. Confusion is probably the best one that we can see here, and as we will see when we start looking at our word cloud, a number of students did express confusion about what was going on in the lesson. Just because a student is identifying confusion doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. So if a student is confused to the extent that they don't know what to do at all, then that is something that you might want to address, and something that you might want to address with individual students in a workshop. Confusion can actually be quite a good thing, because depending on what you're trying to achieve in the lesson, you might actually want to put confusion into the system, because then that can help students deal with difficult or challenging situations and force them to come up with coping strategies. So sometimes a little bit of confusion and stress in your lesson can be good, but obviously you don't want too much. Either way, the POMS and the example that I've chosen here, focusing on anger and confusion, can give you a really interesting and useful snapshot of what's going on in your lesson. Do remember the point that I made earlier about anger doesn't necessarily mean that the student is angry about your lesson. What anger here more is talking about is frustration or things that they are not too sure about. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually probably angry about what's going on in your lesson. So in this video we've looked at POMS as another way of identifying a range of emotions, and here we've identified students who were expressing two emotions and try to understand this data in what's going on in our classroom, and then we would develop appropriate strategies for the whole class and appropriate strategies for the individual students that were identified by each block. In the next video we're going to be looking at how a corpus viewer, that's a text viewer, can help us to zero down on specific highly emotional statements that our students have made in the classroom.